The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be easy. Plates clinked. Someone laughed too loudly. A string quartet played something soft enough to ignore. I was standing near the edge of the patio, watching my son dance with his grandmother when he reached for my arm. Not a squeeze, not a pull, just enough pressure to get my attention. He leaned in, close enough that no one else could hear him. "Dad," he said, steady but wrong somehow. "I found something on her laptop. Please don't let me marry her tomorrow." I didn't react. I didn't look at him. I kept my face calm and nodded once, the way you do when you're taking in information you can't afford to mishandle. What stayed with me wasn't what he said. It was the way his voice dropped, like he already knew there was no going back. A few minutes later, while the music kept playing, I noticed a black folder sitting on a side table near the bar. I hadn't seen it before. I didn't touch it. I just noted where it was. Then I waited. 8 months earlier, my son Aaron had brought Maya into our lives at Thanksgiving. I live outside Santa Fe now, in a low adobe house on a few quiet acres. Wind through juniper, gravel crunching under tires, the kind of place where sounds carry. Maya walked in like she was taking inventory. She smiled quickly, then slower, and let her eyes move across the room before they settled on me. "Mr. Hale," she said, "this place is beautiful." Her handshake was confident, practiced. Her earrings were real. Her designer bag wasn't. You learn to notice those things when you've spent a lifetime around contracts and people who want something. "Just Tom," I said. Aaron watched her the way people do when they want approval and are hoping not to see warning signs. He was 32 then, a wildlife veterinarian, gentle hands, honest work, the kind of man who assumes other people are operating in good faith. During dinner, Maya steered the conversation without appearing to. She asked about what I used to do, asked again, later, from a different angle. She admired the art on the walls, but didn't ask where it came from. She asked what it was worth. After they left, my housekeeper Rosa paused in the doorway and looked back at me. "You don't trust her," she said. "No," I answered. "I don't." But I also said something else, mostly to convince myself. He's an adult. He gets to choose. That night, after the dishes were done and the house went quiet, I sat alone and thought about how carefully I'd kept my life small, how deliberately I'd lived in ways that didn't attract attention, how that choice had shaped my son. By morning, I made a call. His name was Luis Moreno, former federal investigator, private work now. We'd crossed paths decades earlier. I asked him to look into someone, quietly. "Probably nothing," I told him. He didn't ask for details. He never did. 2 months later, Erin called to say she'd said yes. I congratulated him. I meant it. And when the first report came in, I read it once, then put it away. Debt, lawsuits, failed ventures, nothing illegal on its own, just a pattern that didn't sit right. So I stayed silent, and I watched. By the time the rehearsal dinner arrived, I had learned the difference between patience and avoidance. And as the music played on and my son stepped back into the crowd, I picked up my phone, turned it face down on the table, and waited. After that night, nothing moved quickly. That was the hardest part to explain to people later. Life kept its normal pace. Work emails, vet clinic stories from Aaron, wedding plans that arrived in my inbox whether I opened them or not. Maya called me more often after the engagement. Always polite, always just curious enough. She asked what banks I used, whether I preferred paper statements or digital, if I still kept things simple. I answered carefully, not evasively, just truthfully enough to reveal nothing useful. Luis sent a fuller update a few weeks later. I read it alone in my study early in the morning, coffee untouched. There were 2 prior engagements. Both ended quietly. Both involved families with assets, both settlements sealed. There were no convictions, no headlines, just gaps where explanations should have been. Maya's brother Julian appeared often in the background, business manager, advisor. He'd filed for bankruptcy once, a restraining order that had expired. Again, nothing dramatic, just alignment. The kind that only becomes clear when you stop hoping for coincidence. I didn't tell Aaron. Not because I didn't trust him, because I knew exactly how it would sound. Like suspicion, like control, like a father who couldn't step back. So I stayed still. The venue was her idea, an estate north of the city, too expensive for Aaron's income. He asked me for help once, embarrassed, careful with his words. I said yes. I paid for more than he knew. Catering, deposits, a honeymoon suite he didn't ask for. Maya sent a thank you note with a bottle of wine that felt selected by an assistant. I noticed who visited my house next. Julian started showing up with reasons, investment chatter, casual familiarity, sitting before being invited, looking past me instead of at me. Family should help family, he said once, smiling thinly. I opened the door and stood aside. He left, but not before lifting his phone and pretending to check a message while angling it toward my living room. That night I called Luis again. This time, I said, I need everything. He didn't pause. That will take time. I have it, I said. When the report arrived, it wasn't anger I felt. It was clarity. 3 documented cases. Same approach, same timeline, same extraction, engagement, financial involvement, legal pressure, control. In one case, an older man had been declared temporarily unfit through falsified assessments, his accounts frozen, his home transferred. I closed the folder and sat there longer than necessary, 7 days until the wedding. I thought about confronting Aaron, about laying everything out and asking him to choose. I imagined the confusion on his face, the way doubt could fracture trust even if he believed me. So I didn't move. Instead, I organized. I labeled documents, printed timelines, made copies, placed calls that went unanswered and noted the time. Silence became deliberate. The rehearsal dinner arrived wrapped in lights and music and optimism. Guests hugged me, complimented the evening. Maya looked flawless. Julian hovered. And then Aaron stepped away to check his phone. When he came back, his face had changed. That was when he took my arm. Later, after he returned to the crowd, I walked once around the patio. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't touch the folder on the table. I just confirmed something I'd already known. This wasn't theoretical anymore, and tomorrow wouldn't belong to them. I went back to my seat, folded my hands, and waited for the night to end. After the rehearsal dinner ended, Aaron and I didn't speak again that night. That wasn't avoidance, it was agreement. He hugged people goodbye, smiled when expected, played his part well enough that no one noticed the effort it took. When Maya kissed him goodnight, he returned it without hesitation. That told me everything I needed to know about the kind of man he was. When I got home, I didn't pour a drink. I didn't pace. I sat at my desk and opened the folder I'd been carrying for weeks. This was the point where emotion stopped being useful. I laid everything out in order. Dates, transactions, messages Luis had pulled from cloud backups tied to shared devices, access logs, a pattern of searches that showed intent, not curiosity. At 11:14 p.m., Aaron texted me a single line. She went through my accounts, nothing else. I replied, just as simply, I know. I put the phone face down. Then I made 3 calls. The first was to my attorney, Claire Dunham. We'd worked together for over 20 years. She didn't ask why when I told her where to be in the morning. Bring a court reporter, I said. She understood. The second call was to Luis. I want everything compiled, I said. Clear, verifiable, ready to be shown. You're done waiting, he said. Yes. The third call took longer. A journalist I hadn't spoken to since before Aaron was in high school. She remembered my name before I finished saying it. I'll be there, she said. Morning. I didn't sleep after that. Not because I was anxious, because there was nothing left to prepare. At dawn, I walked through my house slowly, past the shelves I'd never explained, the artwork I'd let people assume was inherited or decorative, the safe I'd never opened in front of my son. I wasn't thinking about money, I was thinking about time, about how long I'd mistaken silence for protection. By 8 o'clock, we were at the venue. Aaron was already there, pale, focused, calm in the way people are when shock has burned off and left resolve behind. She doesn't know, he said quietly. That's fine, I answered. Claire arrived first, then Luis. Boxes, folders, nothing dramatic, just preparation. We took over a small conference room near the main hall. No locked doors, no raised voices, everything visible. At 10:30, Maya arrived. I saw her through the window, moving with confidence, smiling easily. Julian followed a few steps behind, phone in hand. At 10:45, guests began filling the chairs. That was my cue. I walked toward the ceremony space as the coordinator tried to redirect me. I didn't argue, I didn't rush. I stepped to the front, reached for the microphone, and waited until the conversations faded. When the space went quiet, I spoke. Not loudly, not emotionally, just clearly. This ceremony isn't going to take place. That was the moment everything shifted, and I stood there long enough for it to settle. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was confused. Chairs creaked. Someone laughed once, thinking it was a joke. I let that pass. Maya turned toward Aaron, searching his face for reassurance. He didn't move. That was the first crack. This isn't appropriate, she said, her voice steady but pitched higher than before. Tom, we can talk about this privately. There's no need, I said. Everything that matters is already documented. I didn't accuse her. I didn't raise a single point that could be argued emotionally. I stayed with process. Step 1, I continued, is clarity. I nodded to Luis, who set a folder on the small table beside me. He didn't open it yet. Step 2 is verification, I said, which is why my attorney and a court reporter are present. Claire stood, introduced herself, and sat back down. No explanation, no tone. Maya's smile thinned. Julian shifted near the aisle. I noticed his eyes move toward the exits. Step 3, I said, is containment. No private conversations, no departures. That was when Julian took a step back. Luis moved without urgency and positioned himself in Julian's path, not blocking, just occupying space. I'd recommend staying, Luis said mildly. It usually works out better. Maya turned back to me, tears already forming, perfectly timed. This is unbelievable, she said, voice breaking. Aaron, you know me. Your father has always resented me. He thinks I'm after something. Aaron finally spoke. I read the messages, he said. Just that. She froze. I didn't step in. I didn't need to. I saw the access logs, he continued. You searched my accounts, my dad's records, property filings. You didn't even log out. She shook her head slowly, like denial could rewind time. That's not what it looks like, she said. Julian was just helping me organize. I raised my hand slightly, not to stop her, to signal I was continuing. At this point, I said, intent matters more than explanation. I opened the folder. Inside were timelines, prior engagements, settlement dates, identical financial movements, patterns that didn't rely on interpretation. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said. It's repetition. A murmur moved through the guests. Phones came out. No one stopped them. Maya's parents sat frozen. Her mother had started crying quietly. Her father stared straight ahead, as if still hoping this could be reversed by ignoring it. I kept my voice even. For clarity, I said, my name is Thomas Hale. 20 years ago, I sold a company I founded. I have spent the years since living deliberately small. I paused once, not for effect, to let the sentence land. That choice was to protect my son, not to deceive anyone. Julian exhaled sharply. Maya's breathing became shallow. The messages you sent last week, I continued, outline a plan to obtain control of my assets through fabricated concern over my mental fitness. Maya opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Claire stood again. These materials will be entered into record, she said. Any attempt to interfere will be noted. That was the moment Maya understood something irreversible had already happened. I closed the folder. We're done here, I said. The rest will proceed through appropriate channels. I stepped back from the microphone and waited. The reactions came in waves. Maya reached for Aaron. He didn't step away, but he didn't move toward her either. That distance said more than any argument could. "This is manipulation," she said, turning to the guests. "You're all witnessing a man trying to control his son." No one answered her. Julian tried again to leave. This time, two men I recognized from my earlier career, old colleagues, not friends, shifted just enough to close the path. No force, just presence. Luis spoke calmly. "Local police are on their way. It's better if no one complicates things." Maya's composure finally broke. Her voice rose, her words came faster. Explanations tangled over each other. I didn't correct her, I didn't respond. Confrontation doesn't require participation from both sides, only definition. Aaron took a step forward. "You planned to say I was worried about my dad's memory," he said quietly. "You wrote that I'd believe you." She stared at him, searching for a version of him she could still reach. "I love you," she said. "That part was real." "I know," he answered. "That's what makes it worse." That was the end of it. Police arrived without urgency. They spoke to Luis first, then to Claire, then to Maya and Julian separately. Statements were taken, phones were collected. The guests stood in small groups, whispering, recording, trying to understand how they'd walked into something so carefully constructed. A reporter arrived just after noon. I gave her my name and nothing else. By late afternoon, the venue was empty. Aaron and I drove home together. The road was quiet, the landscape unchanged. "I'm sorry," he said after a while. "You don't need to be," I told him. "You trusted someone. That's not a flaw." He nodded, looked out the window. At home, I made tea, the ordinary kind. We sat at the kitchen table and said very little. That night, I locked the folder away. Not because it was over, because it had moved to the next phase. The weeks that followed were procedural, interviews, affidavits, requests answered in writing, timelines confirmed by people who had no reason to lie and every reason to be precise. Luis's work held up, every account access, every message, every mirrored pattern from prior cases, nothing flashy, just consistency. Charges came next, not all at once. They never do. Financial fraud, identity misuse, interstate coordination, the kind of cases that move slowly until they don't. Maya and Julian were released briefly, then taken back into custody when they tried to leave the state. That detail reached us through Claire, not the news. Aaron testified once, early, calm, direct. He didn't editorialize. He answered what was asked and stopped. The judge didn't interrupt him. Civil action followed. We sued for an amount we would never see. That wasn't the point. Judgments leave trails. Trails protect the next person. One of the earlier victims contacted me through Claire. An older man, he had lost his house, regained it after the records were re-examined. He thanked me. I told him he'd done the hard part himself by surviving it. Aaron returned to work. Animals don't care about personal upheaval. They need steady hands. He found comfort in that. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the county facility. Maya's handwriting was careful. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't deny what she'd done. She said she'd confused performance with survival for so long that she forgot how to stop. Julian wrote too. Shorter, more defensive. Still honest enough to recognize consequence. I showed both letters to Aaron. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think accountability isn't the same as redemption," I said. "And neither one is ours to grant." I wrote back once, briefly. No emotion, clear boundaries. After that, the correspondence stopped. Life reorganized itself. 6 months later, Aaron introduced me to Elena at a small fundraiser in town, a veterinary surgeon, quiet confidence. She asked about my late wife, about Aaron's childhood. She didn't ask what I'd sold or what I owned. That mattered. At home that night, I put old documents into labeled boxes, not to hide them, just to know where they were. Order doesn't mean exposure, it means readiness. I turned off the light in my study and stood there a moment longer than necessary. Then I went to bed. A year passed quietly. That mattered to me more than anything else. Aaron proposed to Elena in the spring. No spectacle, just a walk, a question, and a yes that didn't need witnesses. They decided on a small ceremony at my house. Folding chairs, simple food, people who knew them, not people who needed convincing. On the morning of the wedding, I swept the back patio myself. The air smelled like juniper and coffee. Elena arrived early and asked if she could help Rosa in the kitchen. She didn't ask where anything was worth. She asked where things belonged. That told me everything. Later that evening, after the guests left and the house settled back into itself, Aaron and I sat on the porch. The light was low. The day finally done. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For waiting. And for stepping in when it mattered." I nodded. There wasn't much else to add. Protection isn't control, and silence isn't strength unless it's chosen. I've since helped 2 other families navigate similar situations, quietly, carefully. Not every warning comes with proof. Not every problem announces itself in time, but patience, records, and calm attention still matter. If you ever find yourself unsure, slow down. Look for patterns, and don't mistake politeness for trust. Before you go, thank you for listening. If this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there right now. 2 more stories people really love will appear on your screen next. Take care of yourself and take your time.